Hello and welcome back. Today we will be looking at ratio and proportion. Okay, so let's have a look at the first slide. Okay, so what does ratio mean? Ratio shows how much of one thing there is compared to another. Let's have a look at this example. So here we have 3 apples and 5 oranges. So the ratio of apples to oranges is 3 to 5. So we are comparing how many apples there are to how many oranges there are. So to every 3 apples, there will be 5 oranges. And this is how we write ratio. So 3 apples to every 5 oranges would be written like this: 3 to 5. So you use the colon sign to write ratio. And when you say it, you use the word to when you get to the colon. So you'd say 3 to 5. Okay, so it's really important that you get the order right. If you get the order wrong, then you will end up with the wrong answer. So when we are comparing apples to oranges, we will mention the ratio of apples first and oranges next. If we are comparing oranges to apples, then we would write the ratio of oranges first, which would be 5, and then the colon and the ratio of apples after that, which is 3. So make sure that you get the order the right way around. Let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, so here we have a jug of squash, and the ratio of orange juice to water to make this orange squash is 1 to 4. Okay, so for every 1 part of orange juice, we use 4 parts of water. And as I mentioned earlier, the order is very, very important, because by changing the order, you will be changing the proportion. Just imagine for a recipe, if you wanted to make some orange squash, and the recipe was, for every 1 part of orange juice, you have to use 4 parts of water, but you get it the other way around. And instead of using 1 part of orange juice, you use 4 parts of orange juice. And instead of using 4 parts of water, you only use 1 part of water. That would be an absolute disaster, and the answer would obviously be incorrect. So make sure you get the order the right way round. Okay, let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, now ratio can be simplified. Like the way fractions can be simplified, ratio can also be simplified. Let's have a look at this ratio here. So we have 12 to 4. The ratio is 12 to 4. It doesn't matter what the 12 represents, and it doesn't matter what the 4 represents. We are looking at simplifying the ratio. So the ratio here is 12 to 4. We can simplify this in exactly the same way that we simplify fractions, by thinking of a common factor that we can divide both of those numbers by. So if you look at this example, we can divide 12 and 4 by 2. So if you divide 12 by 2, you get 6. And if you divide 4 by 2, you get 2. So the new simplified ratio is 6 to 2. However, this is not in its simplest form. When you are simplifying ratio, like the way when you simplify fractions, you need to be thinking about the highest common factor. So the largest number that you can divide both of those numbers by. Now we know that we can divide 12 and 4 by 2, but there is another number that we can divide 12 and 4 by, which is bigger than 2. You're absolutely right. So on this side, you can divide both of these numbers by 4. And these numbers are called the highest common factors. Okay, so if you're not sure about the highest common factor, watch my video on the highest common factors to understand this better. So the largest numbers that you can divide 12 and 4 by is 4 itself. So 12 divided by 4 equals 3, and 4 divided by 4 equals 1. So the ratio 12 to 4 in its simplest form is not 6 to 2, it's actually 3 to 1. Okay, let's have a look at the next slide. Right, ratio can also involve money or a certain amount. Okay, this particular question involves money. So let's have a look at how we deal with ratio when it comes to money. So here we have Ben and here we have Lucy. They are brothers and sisters and they have £200 to share between them in the ratio of 3 to 5. So £200 to be shared between Ben and Lucy in the ratio of 3 to 5. So what does this 3 represent? Well, whose name did I mention first? Did I mention Ben first or did I mention Lucy first? I mentioned Ben. So the 3 belongs to Ben. And after Ben, I mentioned Lucy. So the 5 belongs to Lucy. Okay, so let's go back to this ratio again, 3 to 5. Now, it's really important that you understand that what this actually means. What does the 3 mean and what does the 5 mean? The 3 means that there are 3 parts here, and the 5 means that there are 5 parts. So altogether, how many parts are there? Well done. There are 8 parts because 3 parts add 5 parts equals 8 parts. So we know that there are 8 parts in total. So what we want to do is we want to work out how much one part is. So what we have to do is we take the amount, £200, divide it by 8 because we want to know how much one part is. There are 8 parts in total and we want to know how much one part is. So we would divide it by the total number of parts, which is 8. £200 divided by 8 equals £25. So one part equals £25. Okay, using this information, do you think you can work out how much Ben gets? Because Ben gets 3 parts. Remember, one part equals £25 and Ben gets 3 parts. Lucy gets 5 parts. I'd like you to pause the video now and work out how much each person gets. Okay, let's have a look. So, if one part is £25, how much would 3 parts be? Well, £25 times by 3 would be £75. Okay, so Ben would receive £75. And we know that Lucy gets 5 parts. So if one part is £25, times that by 5, Lucy will get £125. If you got that right, well done. Okay, now the total should always add up to the total over here. So, does £75 and £125 add up to £200? Yes, it does. So we know we've checked our answer by doing the inverse. We've added £75, add £125, and it gave us £200. So we know that our answers are correct. Let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, so now we are going to start looking at proportion. So whenever we hear the word ratio, we also hear the word proportion with it. Ratio and proportion. Now, proportion is slightly different from ratio. Proportion tells us about a part compared to a whole. Ratio is when you're comparing one part to another part, whereas proportion is comparing a part or a portion with the whole thing. It's a bit like fraction. Okay, so let's have a look at this example. We've got some arrows here. And the question is, what is the proportion of red arrows? What is the proportion of red arrows? The proportion is 3/8 because there are 3 red arrows in the whole thing. Okay, how many arrows are there in total? There are 8 arrows in total, and out of the 8 arrows, 3 are red. So the proportion of red arrows would be written like this: 3/8. 3 indicating the 3 red arrows and the 8 indicating the whole, because the whole thing has 8 arrows. So as I said earlier, proportion is very similar to fractions. The question could be turned around, and the question could be phrased as, what is the proportion of green arrows? So in that case, the answer would be 5/8 or 5/8. Okay, so proportion tells us about a part compared to a whole. Let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, what I would like you to do is answer a few questions based on this slide. Okay, my first question is, what is the ratio of cars to motorcycles? Please make sure you get the answer in the correct order. Listen to my question again. What is the ratio of cars to motorcycles? Pause the video and work it out. Okay, let's have a look. So the ratio of cars to motorcycles, so we will be counting the cars first. So there are 6 cars. So the ratio of cars to motorcycles would be 6, and then colon, the ratio sign, which is a colon. And then how many motorcycles are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the ratio of cars to motorcycles is 6/8. Now, my second question. Can you convert the ratio 6/8, or can you write the ratio 6/8 in its simplest form? That means simplifying it. So pause the video now and see if you can simplify the ratio 6/8. Pause the video now. Okay, so let's have a look. So what is the highest common factor for both of these numbers? So what that means is, which number can we divide both 6 and 8 by? What can we divide both 6 and 8 by? We can divide 6 and 8 by 2. And that's the highest common factor. That's the largest number you can divide both of these numbers by. We can divide both of them by 2. We can't divide both of them by 3. 6 can be divided by 3, but 8 can't. We can't divide both of them by 4. 8 can be divided by 4, but 6 can't. Sorry, that's supposed to be a 2. So both of them can be divided by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the new ratio, or the ratio 6/8 simplified, is 3/4. Okay, let's have a think about the next question. What is the ratio of motorbikes to cars? What is the ratio of motorbikes to cars? Pause the video and work it out. Okay, let's have a look. So the ratio of because I mentioned motorbikes first, that's the number that's going to go first. So it's going to be 8 motorbikes to cars is 8/6. Can you see, if you get the order wrong, the answer will be incorrect. For the first one, the answer was 6/8, and for the second one, the answer is 8/6. And again, both of them can be simplified, and 8 will become 4, 6 will become 3. That's if you write it in its simplest form. Okay, my next question is, what is the proportion of what proportion of these vehicles are cars? What proportion of these vehicles are cars? Pause the video and work it out. Okay, so the proportion of these vehicles, the proportion of cars in these vehicles is, well, how many cars are there? There are 6 cars out of, how many vehicles are there altogether? Well, I know that there's 8 motorcycles and 6 cars, which is a total of 14. 8 and 6 is 14. So
The proportion of cars in these vehicles is 6/14. Now, this can be simplified, so let's write this in its simplest form. Both of these numbers can be divided by, can you ever think about it? Both of these numbers can be divided by 2. Hold on. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So, the simplified version of 6/14 is 3/7. Okay, so let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, here we have a question. Let's see if you can solve this question. So the question is that year 5, let me get my cursor, year 5's ratio of boys to girls is 7/9. There are 35 boys, there's the information there. There are 35 boys in this year group. How many girls are there? So, year 5's ratio of boys to girls is 7/9. There are 35 boys in this year group. How many girls are there? You can pause this video now and work this out. Okay, let's have a look at how to work this out. Let's see if you got the right answer. So let's have a look at the first bit. Year 5's ratio of boys to girls is 7/9. So the boys have been mentioned first and the girls have been mentioned last. So the 7 belongs to the boys and the 9 belongs to the girls. Now, remember what we talked about earlier on, 7 and 9. What does this actually mean? 7 to 9. It means 7 parts to 9 parts. So, what is the total number of parts? The total number of parts is 16. However, we are interested in the 7 parts because we have been told what these 7 parts are worth. We know that there are 35 boys, so that means that the 7 parts are worth 35. 7 parts are worth 35 boys. So if 7 parts are worth 35, what does 1 part equal? 1 part. Can you work that out? What does 1 part equal? If 7 parts equals 35, what does 1 part equal? So it's 35 divided by 7 equals, well done, 5. So 1 part equals 5. Okay, now the next bit. So if 1 part equals 5, the girls have 9 parts. How are we going to work out how many girls there were? Well, what we have to do is 1 part equals 5, so 5 times by 9, because the girls have 9 parts. So 5 times by 9 is, well done, 45. Okay. So the answer to how many girls are there? The answer is 45 girls. I hope you got the right answer, and I hope this has made more sense to you and you understand ratio and proportion better. Keep on practicing, try to make some of your own questions up and keep on practicing it with different things. Have a look at recipes that your mums and dads might be using. They usually use ratio and proportion in recipes. Okay, so good luck, keep on practicing, and I'll see you soon.